Hello, my name is Maria Soya, and we're here today because last week we had a pop-up think tank. It was a topic session with Kelley Sanabria, and it was so fun and so good that we wanted to actually record what we talked about so that it could go beyond the 40 participants who were in the live session and live forevermore for whoever this is meant for. So the session was called Women's Wisdom at Work. And I had the opportunity to interview Kelley, and I'm going to do it again because we liked it so much. The reason that Kelley is worth interviewing is because Kelley is a leadership consultant, facilitator, and speaker who works with leaders and teams to transform tension into momentum. So Kelley helps organizations move through conflict, complexity, and change so that they come out stronger on the other side. So today, she's joining us to explore how wisdom, not just strategy, can be key to that shift. And Kelley, I know that there's something you wanted to say.
Yeah, just whoever's watching, thank you for watching. We know there's a lot of different things that you could be doing right now. So thanks for being here with us.
Yes. Alrighty. So the first thing that we wanted to discuss is too much. So what's a moment where something felt like a limitation or too much as a woman, but later revealed itself as a strength?
Yes. So about 10 years ago, I was working with a client. I was facilitating a full day meeting in Spanish, which is my second language. And it was definitely a stretch task for me. And I was just like on all day, right? Like brain going full power, translating, navigating the room, doing things that facilitators do, right? And at the end of the day, I walked into my boss's office and I started crying. And after that happened, I was so embarrassed that I had cried in my boss's office. And I felt like this can never happen again. So I went to a doctor. Doctor prescribed Xanax. And, it was basically like, yeah, you'll never feel like that again at work. If you start to feel those emotions come up, just take a Xanax and you won't feel them. And so at that time, I believed that my emotions didn't belong at work. I felt like crying was a weakness. And what I'm realizing now is that modern corporate structures were largely designed when leadership was overwhelmingly male. And so that shaped what authority looks like, communication styles, expectations around emotional expressions, and expectations around availability. And I think this shapes a lot of what I see women struggling with when I work with teams.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And what strikes me about that story is that you were led to naturally pathologize an emotional reaction to a day that you were probably holding ever so slightly more than you were really prepared to hold. So that's very normal to feel like, oh my goodness, can I handle that? Am I okay? And this like pathologizing of feeling an emotion says a lot. And it seems to me that like the growth was that you're aware that you don't need to do that. And that's actually the strength, right?
100%. Yeah. And it's like, not only do I not need to like pathologize it or make it a wrong thing, it's like, what's actually the benefit of that?
So much so that you can be an expert on it. Nice. So, all right, for you, my next question is about pattern recognition. So, across your clients, what patterns do you consistently see in how women navigate tension, emotion, or polarity at work?
Yeah. So, one of the core patterns that I see is that emotion is treated as something that doesn't belong at work. There's very much a sense of, we don't bring our emotions into the workplace, that we are meant to kind of silo those off, right? And when women don't know how to use their emotional intelligence at work, they often go silent because we're kind of like, how is this supposed to, like, I'm feeling it. It's my real experience, but how is it supposed to show up here? And so I see a lot of women, you know, just holding back, kind of losing their voice. So what the data shows is that women are hormonally wired for higher emotional attunement. estrogen, oxytocin, which women have more of, and the menstrual cycle itself, these all play a role. And on top of that, we are socialized to track relational dynamics and read emotional cues even more deeply. So it's kind of this double whammy where we have more emotional capacity. We're socialized to be that way. And then we walk into workplaces that weren't built to receive either one. The data also shows that emotional labor disproportionately falls to women, and it's almost never recognized as the leadership skill that it actually is. But when you can feel what's happening in a room, the tension, the unspoken fear, resistance, you can feel that before anyone has named it. That's wisdom. The ability to truly see and hear people creates psychological safety. Psychological safety is where people speak up, where they take risks, share dissenting views that are actually healthy for the team. That's where innovation lives, where retention of our best and our brightest lives. It's where trust lives. And so the good news is that the intelligence already exists in your teams. We just have to recognize it and leverage it.
Mm. Yes, and this is why you're somebody I meant to know in my path because something I think about a lot and like close colleagues of mine in the past is like they comment on how like if the room isn't the right temperature for me to feel like comfortable to participate or if I feel like my peers maybe don't feel that way, I get very agitated and like unwell. Like I can't even cope. And so it sounds like you have figured out how to navigate that as well. And it sounds like our combined strength is noticing this so that people feel welcome to say what they have to say, right?
Yeah, and it was really interesting. We're going to talk about this in another episode. But the feedback that we got while we were doing the pop-up think tank is that so many women and folks on the call felt seen by this conversation and we're like, oh my gosh, I can't, I've never had this conversation before. This is totally me. So we'll dive into that feedback and what people were sharing with us as we did the think tank and then after the think tank as well.
Yes, it's all it's so meta. Okay, so polarity. So something that I've heard you talk about in the way that I've gotten to know you is polarity. I know this comes up in your work a lot. So how do you help women reframe tension or polarity from something to manage into something to lead through?
Yeah, so polarity is like if you're not familiar, it's like what the heck is a polarity? So I discovered the concept of polarity when I was going through the executive coaching program at Georgetown and I just fell in love with it. So here's the idea. Most people treat tension as a problem to solve and get rid of. Like it's uncomfortable, we want certainty, we don't want tension. Let's solve for it and be done with it. The thing is that most tensions are not actually problems. They're polarities. And when I say a polarity, I mean an interdependent pair that must be managed over time, like work and rest. Work and rest need each other to exist, right? Like the idea of work doesn't exist without the idea of rest, and rest doesn't exist if we don't know what work is, right? So it's like yin and yang. And the idea of polarities is that we're balancing work and rest, or whatever other polarity it is, but work and rest as an example, we're balancing them over time. And neither extreme is effective. So if we over-index on work, we end up burned out, right? We've probably all, most all of us have done that, where we've just over-indexed on work and we're so burned out, and then we have to recover, and it's like a whole thing. If we over-index on rest, then we're just like, oh, now I feel lazy, nothing's getting done, right? And a polarity that a lot of the women I work with, a polarity that they struggle with is humility and confidence, or confidence and empathy. A lot of women struggle to feel assertive. Most of the time, They are over indexing on empathy or on humility. And what can happen is that we become so attuned to others' comfort that we start managing ourselves for their comfort instead of speaking our truth. We essentially abandon ourselves, speaking from personal experience here. And when we do that, the cost is that we lose our voices. And here's what that looks like in the room. That's like you're on a Zoom call and you find your hand like hovering over the unmute button. Should I unmute and interject or should I not? You're at a meeting and you can almost feel like you've got something that wants to come out. Should I use my voice? Should I speak up or not? Or when you do speak up, you discount yourself. You start out by saying, I might be wrong, but you soften your language. You say, oh, this is probably a silly question. So women often feel like they need to be warm, be agreeable, manage the room's comfort, right? Or sometimes women will overcorrect to become harder, louder, more like traditionally authoritative. And so the idea is that neither pole is the answer. It's how do we come to understand this polarity and ourselves so that we can show up how we want to.
Yes. And so, how do we want to do that? So, taking ownership, what does it look like for women to move from reacting to circumstances into taking full ownership of one's role, voice, and impact?
Yeah, I love this question, right? Like the empowering question. So, two things here. One is that when these polarities are happening, these dynamics are often happening and we're not aware of them. And it's like they're happening to us and they can cause suffering just because we're unaware, right? Like if I don't know I'm struggling with the confidence, humility, polarity, then it's just all happening around me and I'm not aware. We have this beautiful opportunity to learn about polarities in the workplace. And I love teaching this to teams because when I teach this to teams, it not only helps them like work through their own polarities and what's showing up in their workplace, but it's so empowering for the whole team because they have this new language, this new shared language that they can all use. And it's empowering to them. They're not victim to anything. They can say, oh, guys, I think this is, a task and relationship polarity. I think this is what's happening here. And they go, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So how do we need to, work through this? And they have the tools to do that. And when you're leading through the polarity, the empowering part, right? Like you start to see them, you own the polarity, you're in control, you use the polarity. And this is where you have this opportunity. It's a huge opportunity in a team, in a work environment, to move from being reactive to being intentional. And when we do this, we're harnessing the tension that's in that polarity, like intentionally. And there's so much creativity and innovation that can come out of managing these polarities on the team. So, the biggest thing that we can do is to work on our own internal reactivity. So, when we're stressed or triggered, our brains literally cannot access our best selves, right? We've all been there. This is like we lose our grace, we lose our tone, we lose our presence. And so 10 years ago, I was, like you said, I was trying to medicate my reactivity away. And the same parts of me that made me cry at work, which are that I am a big feeler, I'm very sensitive, I'm a massive empath, and I really care about my clients and their experience and what's going on in the room. These are actually my strongest leadership tools. And so, what I used to see as a burden, I now see as a superpower. And what I didn't know then was that I just needed to train it a little bit. And so that's what meditation gave me. I've trained it through meditation because meditation taught me that there's a pause between the trigger and the response. And I think that this pause is where better leadership lives too. And we call our capacity to regulate our own nervous systems our vagal tone, and we can actually co-regulate, which means that our regulated nervous systems can actually help the people around us. So my calm or any leader's calm becomes contagious. What a hugely powerful opportunity. So I find that the best leaders are really doing deep work on themselves, on their own central nervous systems, finding that ability to pause between trigger and response, their own calmness, their own ability to manage their reactions. And so when we think about what this unlocks in terms of role, voice, and impact, it's that for your voice, you stop hedging your language, you own your voice confidently. You don't need to hesitate over the unmute button, right? For role, you stop shrinking and you start owning who you are in the room and what you're there to do and what you have to say. And for impact, you create safety and momentum for everyone around you. And what I think is probably like the most important thing out of this entire conversation is that when we talk about women showing up fully, I would love to talk about what's involved in making it possible for women to show up at all.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I have another question. And before I get to it, I just want to note, like, how many of us have all felt that, like, tension in your body, like you have a stomach ache, you feel nervous. Like, I, for one, I used to get so nervous in certain classes that I'm like sweating and like, oh my gosh, do I belong here? Like, I don't know how to do whatever this math problem, or I don't know how to do it. So then if you're like feeling that tension in your body, it really creates like a resistance of how you're able to share your point of view and like let alone have the confidence to do it. So anyway, so I appreciate what you're saying that it's like this journey to basically be accountable to being calm because then whatever is coming up can flow through you rather than reacting to it is what I'm getting from you. So,
Yes, yes.
okay,
And
my final question. Wait, and also any thoughts on that?
well, I was just going to say, I really
Yeah.
love like I think you're making my like what I said, you're making it clear because the vagus nerve connects the brain to the entire body, right? And so that's why like when we are nervous, sometimes our stomachs get upset. It's connected to like our lungs and our hearts. And our guts actually talk to our brain too. So we tend to think of like mind and body as very separate, but they're actually very joined. And so, yes, when we're training our vagus nerve through meditation, we're training all of these parts and we're training ourselves to get knowledge from them and then to use our calmness to like manage that nerve as well and the effects that it will have going out into our bodies.
Okay, so that's helpful because then that kind of grounds the example better of like instead of it being like, okay, I have to be calm. I know I'm supposed to be calm. It's like, all right, well, this is happening. So what is this telling me? I'm just collecting some
Yes.
information that my body's doing this in response to this thing that's happening. No need
Yes.
to judge it. It's happened before. Why did that
Yes.
happen before? What happened when I that happened before? And then the more that we see this happening and like these trends that we have, then that creates our wisdom for how we work, and then our wisdom in relation to our environment and each other and the fact that we can even talk about this calmly right now.
Yes. Yes, 100%. There's a really good book called Your Body is Your Brain. And it's one of the reasons that a lot of us coaches will have people tap into their bodies and we'll say, like, where do you feel that in your body? Like, where is that coming up for you physically? Like, what is your physical experience as when you think about that? Like, does your chest get tight? Do you feel nervous? Like, does your neck, like, do you find yourself carrying tension, right? Like, because our bodies are just giving us that data. And so we can look at that data and go, oh, okay, so this is obviously bringing up something for you, right? So bodies are hugely powerful.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful lesson because I think that if you're not careful, like um from experience, like you can kind of end up feeling as a woman like, oh, I'm too emotional for this room, I'm too emotional for this. But actually it's like just training how you filter that input and how it's like controlled in how you take leadership of that basically input. Is that the right idea?
Um,
Or you can
Maybe
say it
maybe we
differently.
expand on this in like another video because I also think like sometimes I find myself even questioning like, do we want to control it so much? Like, do we have to filter it so much? Like if you think about current global affairs, like maybe it would be better if people were crying in the room. Like, I don't know. So yeah, I have to think more about that one.
Okay. All right. Well, my last question for you is about global causes. So, when you zoom out globally, where do you see women's access to basic needs like health, autonomy, dignity directly impacting their capacity to lead or participate fully?
Yes, so one of my favorite things to talk about. Again, going back to the data, women hold just 11% of Fortune 500 CEO roles currently. And in Congress in the United States, women are only 28% of members. And so at the current rate of progress, it would take nearly half a century for corporate America to reach gender parity, meaning that we would have like equal male-female CEOs. And if we want more women's wisdom in leadership, government, CEO positions, we need to talk about the pipeline. And so in the United States, 1 in 4 girls misses school because of her period. So if she's not in school, that directly affects her ability to be in that pipeline. Some states have laws where it's required that menstrual products be provided in schools, which is a huge start. It's a huge help. And we have that law here where I am in Maryland. But for example, those products, at least in one of the local schools that I know of, are in the nurse's office. They're not in the bathroom. So if you think about a girl who needs to change her menstrual product, has to leave class, she has to go to the nurse, then she has to go to the bathroom. And it sounds small, but she may have just missed the most important thing that her teacher said that day. And so that adds up. And so if you don't have access to menstrual health products and you're missing class time, or if you don't have access to them at all, like let's say you can't even get to school, you're going to be missing a few days of school every month, or if your school doesn't have the supplies for you. And it's just something that I think a lot of people don't think about or we're not aware of. We think it doesn't happen in the US. And it's something that only people who have a period need to deal with. So it can be a disadvantage. And so when we talk about bringing women's wisdom into the room, we need to make sure that women and girls have what they need physically so they can literally show up to school, so they can show up to work, they can be more present, they can be confident, and they can be heard. And so menstrual equity is a foundational issue. It's my biggest passion project because I deeply believe that the world will be a better, safer place when we reach gender parity. And I want to help make sure in my lifetime that a period does not stand in the way of any woman, any girl, or anyone who menstruates who this world needs. So we have an opportunity to support women and uplift the women around us, both at our peers that we work with every day and the ones who are coming after us. And that is where I think we take women's wisdom and we put it into action.
Yes. And when we did this session live with 40 people, that was really unique because that was a room of women all thinking about leadership. So now we're sharing this more broadly, but in either context, to me, it's like, what a privilege to be in a room thinking about how to show up as a leader. And the invitation that to me that elicits is that maybe if this is resonating with somebody, it's like, how do we uplift women around us who may feel tension, that they might be feeling uncomfortable in their bodies, so that we welcome all of the women who we meet to feel comfortable in how to use their voice so that they're unafraid to change the rooms that we're in, they're in, we're all in by our contributions to the rooms.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the right question is like, after hearing all of this, how can you do that? Where can you lean in? Where can you support?
And how can we support, right? So,
Yeah.
yes, if this calls to anyone who maybe knows of like a women's health or menstrual equity cause or organization that we could meet, we would be excited to get to know organizations that are working toward this and yeah, see what work is being done in that sphere, right?
Absolutely.
Sweet. All right. Well, Kelley, thanks as always. It's so fun to talk to you, and thanks for being you.
Thank you for being you, and thank you for doing this again with me. I love it.
Yay.